Welcome back. Episode 10. Now we're into double digits. Scissortail Podcast. Porter Cunningham with you. As always, my good friend, co-host Will Bowersox. Will, say hello to the people.
Greetings, and if I've learned anything about myself, and apparently you as well in the last week, it's that apparently I'm the propaganda mouthpiece for a club whose attendance figures are artificially inflated by as much as 95%, that we're not even spewing as much propaganda as true front office stooges should be, that I'm a bigot and a homophobe, and that apparently through my involvement with a team who commingles charity and business, I'm also a carpetbagger huckster of the worst kind. And so are you, Porter. But let's put a pin in that until free talk.
All right, so some strong comments out the gate from Will. We are going to have a huge free talk segment this episode, but we have something else big to talk about before we get there.
Something historic, even.
Something historic. The very first NASL
match
soccer game in Oklahoma was played Saturday night.
That's not entirely true because there was a Tulsa team in the previous NASL.
That's true. In this incarnation of the NSL.
In Oklahoma City.
In the modern era, you might say.
In the modern era in Oklahoma City.
So let's talk about that. First of all, some corrections from our last episode, as pointed out by the loyal company of the River Valley. Daryl Fordyce is a striker. I think I called him an attacking center mid or a forward. True striker.
Semantics.
FC Edmonton did make the postseason in the first year of the league, 2011. So they have that banner hanging up somewhere.
I was quite impressed with FC Edmonton. Very organized in the back. They have a strong identity as a team, for sure.
Yeah, so
their keeper is a stud.
Indeed. Obviously, the result was a 0-0 draw, a scoreless draw, which we'll get into later. Attendance, a sold-out 6,416 people at Miller Stadium, plus about 200 standing room only tickets.
I think it's great. You know, what's funny about that is I was real nervous. Look, I'm an amateur podcaster, not affiliated with the club at all. But I was legitimately nervous yesterday that there were going to be like 300 people at this game.
I know I definitely have some crow to eat because I was expecting sub 1,000 people there.
Yeah. Well, we're sitting up in the press box, which is a whole other conversation that's hilarious. But we're in the press box, and we keep looking out over our right, and we can see the ticket office. And there are
one of four
ticket offices. The ones that we're looking at, there are people, in line to buy tickets. It's almost halftime, and the line is 4 rows of cars deep into the parking lot.
Yeah, at least 30 or 40 people deep.
So let's put a pin in that as well, because there's some potential controversy about the ticket numbers being inflated. We'll talk about that later on. But look, first impressions, the facilities were truly first class. From the stadium to the press box to... we got to go to the post game, kind of in the wellness center, which is where the locker rooms were. The turf looked great from our vantage point. Obviously, we weren't on it; we were running on it, but it sounds like it played well. And I just think you don't want to look too deeply. This is just one game, right? But it makes me very cautiously optimistic moving forward.
Sure.
What do general atmosphere? What are your thoughts?
I thought it was great. I thought. Manufactured numbers or not, the crowd was loud. The crowd was into it. It seemed like a very soccer knowledgeable crowd. Strong Hispanic contingent in the crowd, which is great. I think that's what the club was going for. The diversity of the crowd was nice. Everyone seemed to be having a good time. They had the food trucks inside the stadium. They had quite a bit of stuff for people to do besides just watch the game. And then, as we all know, unfortunately, due to extraneous events, there was no beer sales at the game, which we can maybe talk about that later. I don't know if we want to dive that far into it.
We'll talk about it later.
So hopefully they had a nice area set up for a beer garden, and that was empty because obviously they had no beer to sell. So they add that in next week, and going forward, we'll see if this is something that they can sustain. That's the biggest thing for me from a general atmosphere point of view is you knocked it out of the park with the first game. Now you've set yourself up to continuously.
Now the hard work really begins.
Yeah.
Now the hard work really begins.
So just 1 week from this game, you've got game 2. So can you do it again for game 2 and then keep people entranced into, throughout the season?
Operationally, I think they did a really good job. There are things that I wouldn't have known went wrong. The only reason I know that things went wrong is because I was in the vantage point that we were in. Mm-hmm. So operationally, look, first game, they were already on a compressed time schedule. Some things that they could have done better. Those will certainly improve just as a function of experience. But yeah, that's just kind of our impression. So certainly a positive outcome. The game could have gone better, but it also could have gone a lot worse. So let's move on. Segment 2, we'll talk a little bit more about the actual game, get into some technical information from the game. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
All right, we're back. Episode 10, doing a little recap of the inaugural home opener for Rayo OKC. We're going to jump into a segment that we like to call Tech Talk. So we've covered...
This is this segment's debut.
Yes, lots of historical firsts. We've covered a little bit of the atmosphere of the stadium in the evening, the facilities. So now let's talk about what happened on the field. So, Will, what formation were we in most of the evening?
I think, by the way, just as a quick aside, I think it's easy for people in our shoes to try to sometimes fit a square peg into a round hole when it comes to things like formation and style. I think the team played fluidly in formationally and situationally. So I was trying to count as best I could at different times. It looks like in the opening stages of the match, they were sitting in kind of like this, like 3-5-2-1. And then after the red card happened, they were pretty much sitting in a 4-2-3-1 the whole time. They definitely played an attacking brand of football, and hopefully I got the math right on the 3-5-2-1. I always get that wrong, but the things that I took away from the technical aspect of the game is that in that 4-2-3-1, Derek Boateng was playing in one of the central defensive midfielder spots, and really, I think is a function of A, who he is as a player, and B, the position he's playing, and that's kind of like one of the key roles in that position.
He really set the tone.
He set the tone.
He had some hard fouls early on, and he basically came out and said, you're not going to be able to run through our midfield.
He set the tone going both ways,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
he was bossing the midfield and making great outlet distributing passes, some one-touch looks. He was trying to spring Finley a couple times on the break. And then on the defensive side, he made some really good professional fouls. Now he got a yellow card. I think for me, the yellow card was an accumulation caution. Just he made a couple of rash tackles, but he really set the tone.
So no goals, 0-0 draw, so no goals to report. Like you said, discipline. Mr. Derek Boateng got a caution early on. I was trying to look through the match report.
And I don't want to keep coming back to this too much, but I think if Boateng played all 90, he's the man of the match for me.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that going forward on the attack, the wingbacks, the fullbacks, the guys who are on the back line of the defense, playing on the outside of the formations, those guys were getting way forward in the attack.
Yeah. Michel on the left and Kosuke Kimura on the right. He was making some good overlapping runs.
Yeah.
Sebastian Velasquez also got a caution in the 34th minute, but the major turning point of the game was Albert Watson, the captain for FC Edmonton, one of their two central defenders, straight red in the 29th minute for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity.
Porter, is that a red card for you?
To the letter of the law, yes, I think it is. Because who was it? Robbie Finley or Marvin Chavez, who was in on goal basically there, and he knocked it past him, and Watson either lazily or intentionally left his leg out there, and there was enough contact for it was right on the edge of the box. And from my vantage point, it surely looked like Matt Van Oekel was going to get to the ball before Marvin Chavez did. Even if he was through, but by definition of the word opportunity, I think the referee made the correct decision there.
I think if it's earlier in the game, it's not a red, but by that point, there had already been a yellow card and some chippy fouls. But look, it doesn't matter. Like you said, the letter of the law. Clearly, it happened. Both teams reacted to it. It is what it is. 7 times out of 10, that's a red card.
Yeah.
In any other game. So let's talk about substitution patterns. One thing that we've got a question about is, I don't know that we have this question, but certainly it's not hard to say. Rio has one of the older, by age, one of the older teams in the league. On the one hand, you get experience, and on the other hand, you maybe have some guys that have some tired legs. So we saw Boateng get subbed out for Menjivar. We saw Velasquez, who's not that old, come off for Billy Forbes.
Which, by the way, let me interrupt you there, because at first I thought, it's interesting. Why are they coming out? And then I put 2 and 2 together, and they both were already on cautions.
Yep. Yeah,
so
of course.
You're playing a man up, and you've got 3 substitutions available. Sub off the guys with yellow cards, and
why lose the obvious advantage? And then the third substitution was, I'm saying these out of order. The Boateng sub was first, the Velasquez sub was second, and the final sub, Robbie Finley, came off for Samaras, and probably
Big Sam.
I have it written down. Let me just look.
Which I saw, speaking of discipline, I don't know that there was any given out, but I saw somebody tweet that it took George less than 2 minutes to get his both hands around the neck of an FC Edmonton player. So I don't know if, he kind of felt like, and this is something he's going to have to face all season. If these guys are a little bit beneath him, or they
resent that he is this talented guy, and that there's this presumed all-star team that they're
playing.
Playing.
Or it's either that, or they really aren't as good, and so he's so much better that as we see, scale it down in our indoor games, the better players get hacked a lot by the not as good players. So he's going against defenders that aren't up to the level that he's played, and he probably gets pissed off that they're tearing his ankles up.
Sure.
And then there was comments about the
in
head
soccer.
coach.
In soccer, as in life, getting dragged down to the mud by those beneath you can be very frustrating.
Who was our assistant coach that always said that in high school? Drove the Mercedes. The beautiful Merc. He wasn't English. He was Welsh.
Stephen. Dude, you just dropped an F-bomb, man.
Oh, man, sorry.
All right, well, look, I thought that Samaras played really well. Obviously, limited action. Obviously, his fitness is probably not all the way there, which is not surprising. When he came on, I was literally talking to Porter, and I said, man, Samaras, he can't outrun these guys. What's going to happen? And right as I was saying that, he combined with Billy Forbes on this beautiful 1-2-1-2 that cracked open the Edmonton defense and led to Rayo's far and away best chance to score a goal game. I think should have been a goal, but it says a lot about Edmonton's keeper that he kept out these 2 kind of cracked shots.
Great double save.
So
big knockout, big rebound that came out to the top of the 18, and then I don't know who, one of the midfielders was out there and just ripped one, and he was there for that. He recovered and made that second save too. So
let's wrapping this segment up. It was really nice to see that the team played attacking football, both in possession but also defensively. They were pressing Edmonton selectively, especially outside of the final third. They were pressing pretty well. I think they ended the game with 65% possession for. They badly had more passes, which I think is a function, A, of their style of play, B, being a man up. And look, you don't want to extrapolate from a small sample size, but certainly some positives to build on. I think the narrative is a lot different if they ended up scoring a goal, and there were other scoring opportunities as well.
Yeah.
Nothing I thought was a major negative, but it could all change next week. They could lose next week, and so unless you have any other comments.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say that we were fortunate enough to go to the press conference, and we have audio, but we're doing this on a short timetable, so we're not going to. You're just going to have to listen to us and not Coach Marcino.
Read the same quotes in the news, okay?
Right. So basically, Chris Brannick asked the question that we were going to ask. Essentially, Coach Marcino, are you happy with the result? And I think his answer, paraphrasing here, was basically, I'm not happy with the result. Obviously, would have liked one of those balls to go in, but very happy with the way that they played. They did exactly what you're supposed to do when you're a man up for 60 minutes. Dominate the game. Create good chances, and eventually those chances will go in. So it didn't happen tonight, but...
And I think his answer would have been the same if we had lost. Let's say that Edmonton gets a fluke goal on the break, Well, we still dominated the game, and that's sometimes just the way that the soccer ball bounces. Yeah. So anyway, that wraps up Tech Talk, and we will come back and talk next about next week's match versus the Carolina Railhawks. Stay with us.
All right, we're back. Segment 3, we're going to do a little preview of the second NASL game in Oklahoma in the modern era. Quick turnaround for the team. The Carolina Railhawks, I should say, come to Miller Stadium this Saturday, April 9th.
More like the Jailhawks, am I right?
So, Carolina...
7 p.m., Miller Stadium.
Yep.
Yukon, Oklahoma.
Buy your tickets early because, as we all know, the ticket lines will be long. So get some season tickets or visit the box office this week. Yesterday, Carolina won 2-1 against Minnesota United FC.
Heavily favored Minnesota United FC.
Yeah, I guess.
Which is a little unfair. I think people are saying, well, they're going to the MLS, so they must be MLS.
They've been pretty highly anointed, and I know we saw on the Total NASL roundtable Thursday night, all of us picked Minnesota United except for Jason from Off the Rails. He went fanboy.
Homer call of the week.
Picked Carolina and was correct. He actually has picked everything correct so far.
Oh, wow.
He picked a Carolina win.
He picked a Rayo draw.
He picked a Rayo draw.
Wow.
He picked a Miami Fort Lauderdale draw. And then he predicted a Cosmos win today. So we'll see if that comes true, and he'll be leading the roundtable in predictions.
Got it. Well, Porter, it's brief, it's concise. Give us some context onto who Carolina is.
So they were a USL club from 2007 to 2009.
Humble beginnings.
Then they, as the only form of promotion and relegation we have right now in American soccer, they promoted themselves to the unnamed second division in 2010.
Okay, self-promotion?
Yes.
You can do that?
Sure, it's just, right now it's...
Yeah, sure, about the dinero.
About the money. So then they became a founding member of the new modern era NASL in 2011. So FC Edmonton was as well.
Great.
So that was the first year that the NASL played the new league. So
how'd they do last season?
Last season finished the spring season 3rd, the fall season 7th, which was not good enough to put them into the playoffs.
Old law of averages strikes again.
Their best finish, in club history was a trip to the Soccer Bowl that they were unable to
convert
into a win and take home. So I think they've got a pretty good fan base. They've got a really nice facility, Wake Med Soccer Park in Cary, North Carolina.
Yeah. Well, look, they have clearly allowed controversy to roll off their backs. So their last owner is basically implicated in this FIFA bribery scheme.
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. So it was really interesting. I think it's called Traffic Sports. You should Google it.
Okay.
Well, I haven't been following the story, but so they've had to kind of roll with it. So they're still averaging 4,500 fans in a 10,000-seat stadium. I'd say that's pretty good.
Yeah.
45%.
I watched, sat on the couch. This is so great about the NASL. I sat on the couch yesterday afternoon, preparing myself mentally for the Rio home opener, and had my iPhone and pulled up the Watch ESPN app, and I was sitting there watching this game. So the weather was beautiful. The crowd looked into it. I'd say about 60% full.
Cool.
Sports section was going great. So excited to see him come to Oklahoma. Will, after what we saw last night, do you think you can provide a good prediction for the game Saturday?
Yeah, I'll take Rio 13, Railhawks 7.
Okay.
What about you?
Despite your baseball score, I don't really know. Like we said,
I actually fear the worst.
Yeah.
It would be, I feel, momentum stopping to go lose 1-0 or 2-0. 2-0 to me is always a comprehensive victory in soccer. 3-0 is kind of a blowout. It would hurt to lose a game 2-0. I hope they can pull off a W. I can't make a prediction in good conscience. I don't know enough about Carolina.
Yeah, it's really tough. I'm going to make a prediction just for the sake of making one. and I'm going to predict a 2-2 draw. I'm going to say it's 2-1 Railhawks, and late in the game, again, we see a late Samaras substitution on, and he finishes this time. So,
all right, we'll hold you to it.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right, so that wraps up the Carolina preview, thorough that it was. We are going to come back with a free talk segment full of hot sports takes. Stay with us.
All right, we're back. Episode 10. We just finished recapping the very first game in Rayo OKC history, and it's been a really big week. And Will, I know you've got a lot of stuff you want to get off your chest in this free talk segment.
I always do, right?
In fact, you've gone so far as to prepare somewhat of a statement. A manifesto, if you will.
Well, rather than y'all listening to me ramble incoherently, I found that it was better to organize my thoughts. But if there was a title for this manifesto, this credo, it would be called Manufactured Controversies. I feel like in a lot of ways that is a big theme from the last week. So there's a couple controversies, and so I'll talk about the first one, and that is continued pushback from Vallecano fans. So I talked about this in the last free talk, but
it's been talked about a lot, but please continue.
I think we should keep talking about it.
Yeah.
The easy narrative is the easy way out, and I think it's flawed. So let me ask you a question. Let's say that you have, I'm just going to pick a number here, $20 million to spend to try to improve your team. And historically, your team has been, the third team in a major city.
Middle of the table.
Middling La Liga side.
Bouncing between relegate to the first and second division every 6 years or so.
For decades.
Yeah.
Okay? Would you rather take that money and gamble it on 2 to 3 players, hope that they gel with the team, they perform, they don't get hurt, and that they stick around for a while, and that their performance impacts the table standing of your team? Or would you rather invest it into something that is sustainable in the long term as a player development pipeline, and that hopefully improves your club on an order of magnitude that is greater than just dipping into the transfer market year after year?
Yeah, so I know we've talked about this before. Their relatively small investment into Rayo OKC has not only brought their branding over.
There were people last night wearing Vallecano jerseys. Now, they weren't wearing the black kit. Maybe that means they're homophobes, but they were still wearing it.
So we've already seen that the marketing, the branding, guess what? Now they're almost every fan of an NASL team we've talked to says, I want one of those black jerseys.
Right.
So they're going to be funneling money back to Vallecano, back to the sibling club or the mother club, however you want the relationship to look like. Also, this gives them a free shot to sign somebody like Giorgio Samaras, who's coming off of an injury, who, depending on who you talk to, failed 1 to 2 medicals. Now they can, if they sign him for a relatively small amount, he plays 1 season here. If he does great, it's just a tune-up for La Liga play. Everybody benefits.
So
we've talked about it before.
Well, look. Well, the obvious counterpoint is it's a misallocation of near-term resources. It's not a secret. Vallecano, their current stadium is pretty rough. And maybe you could say they should have invested in the stadium first. Or maybe they should have spent some money on the stadium and this kind of development pipeline. It's fair. But let me ask you another question. Does owning a Lamborghini make you a better driver? It wouldn't make. I'm a terrible driver, by the way. If you want to raise the profile of your club, do you buy a stadium today and hope it attracts players and that those players go on to kind of make your club higher in the table standings? Or do you attract the players, hope that they get you a groundswell of performance, and then use that as a platform to go buy the stadium? Because look, if it was just about the stadium, I'm pretty sure they would have already done it, right? Anybody can spend that money, go hire a contractor, spec it out, and do it. I'm pretty sure the Dallas Cowboys haven't won the last 5 Super Bowl titles or even played in one. So for me, it's too easy. So now shifting gears a little bit, another manufactured controversy this week about Rayo OKC, their announcement of the jerseys and the meanings behind the jersey. So if you're not familiar, they have this black kit with a rainbow strip, and so does the home club Viacano. So the Viacano, the rainbow is supportive of the LGBT community, and each of the colors has a specific meaning as well. What Rayo OKC did this week was they basically released the identical jersey, and then they clarified the local charitable intent meaning behind each of the colors. So while they could have probably communicated a little more clearly that, yes, the rainbow still is here, there are some kind of vocal members of, I guess, the opposition that are presuming or implying that the Rayo OKC entity is anti-LGBT because they didn't reaffirm the meaning of the rainbow strip when they were announcing the local charity. The implication of that is a serious, and B, and I say this with intentionally, a very dangerous error in logic. And as an example, it's like saying, well, the Energy don't have a rainbow strip on their jerseys, so therefore they must be anti-LGBT as well. If that hits too close to home, here's another one. I haven't heard any anti-child hunger advertisements on the franchise lately. Therefore, I must assume that everyone at the franchise supports child starvation. You can see how dangerous that is as a platform for the way that you think. It's a slippery slope.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and really quickly, let me interrupt you there, because one thing we talked about early on is if the team takes a carbon copy of the jerseys, of the Viacano jerseys, and brings them over, we would hope that they would add some local connections to it.
Yes, which they did.
So they did, and let me announce those. I have it right here. The purple stripe represents support for nonviolence and nonviolent action. The blue stripe, specifically human rights and justice and diversity awareness.
Okay.
The blue stripe represents autism awareness and support for families in the autism community for those that support them. The green stripe represents support for the family farming and ranching in our state and for our Oklahoma rural communities, which, if it were not for the energy industry, would be the number one source of income for everyone in the state of Oklahoma, specifically in Canadian County where the team's home games are played. So there you go, building the wall around Yukon. The yellow stripe represents support for our military forces, awareness for PTSD, and for suicide prevention. The orange stripe represents food insecurity and hunger awareness. The team has partnered with the Needs Foundation, which collects the unserved or unsold food surplus from grocers, bakers, and restaurants and distributes the food for needy Oklahomans. And the red stripe represents education awareness, and the team has partnered with the Roger Palacios Foundation to support their effort to raise funds for college scholarships. So there you go. There is your local tie-in to what is undoubtedly a great cause.
Could the rainbow has a very obvious meaning, and so to try to not have that is just so ludicrous. But look, okay, if you say, well, it is a fair question to ask of the team, which I don't think it is, but like I said, I also think they could have communicated a little bit better. Think about how negative or cynical your mindset has to be in the first place to assume bigotry or homophobia, or that Rayo Vallecano would sign off on a local ownership group not supporting a social cause that they hold very dear. The last time that I checked, soccer was supposed to be a platform to unify the community, and so it's very disappointing to me to see people trying to drive wedges in what are very positive causes. So, okay, changing to my next topic, which is related, there were also some comments that I saw about how these jersey sales were a bait and switch, using the commercial platform of selling jerseys to raise money for charity. Now, first of all, that is not a bait and switch and is not a valid critique. You know, God forbid that kind of positive community social causes also be economically viable or, you know, raise money in kind of creative ways.
People are going to buy the shirts regardless because they look awesome.
Look,
so you might as well get some of it for charity.
You got to advance the cause of the charity somehow, right? So, but look, like I said, it's not a valid critique in the first place. But even if it were, the Energy do the exact same thing. $2 from every ticket of Energy home games goes to the Fields and Futures nonprofit, which, by the way, is a great cause. Oh, but since we're talking about a bait and switch, it's worth mentioning that an owner of the Energy runs said nonprofit. So it's on an even deeper level than what you're accusing Rio OKC of doing, which, again, is not a bait and switch in the first place, and is exactly what you should be doing to align your club with the community. So look, all of this is to say, I feel and this is corny, I feel a really strong shared responsibility to raise the image of Oklahoma City, to do things that make Oklahoma City a better place to be. And it's corny to say out loud, but I think everyone feels it, and it's part of what attracted me to come back to live here in the first place.
And let me be clear that some will say, undoubtedly, that they are trying to raise the imagery of OKC. But you're in Yukon. You're not in OKC. Okay, the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce defines itself as Oklahoma County and all of these surrounding counties.
Boom,
so
full stop. Conversation over.
And that's it. I mean, the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce is the driver for so many of these things.
Full stop.
To say that you're not in Oklahoma City proper, and if that argument comes up, I mean,
it's not a valid argument in the first place.
And you're also
the Dallas Cowboys play in Arlington.
You're also a fool if you think that Rayo OKC, if they last, when their lease is up at Yukon Stadium, that they're going to build their stadium in Canadian County, that they're 100% sure they're going to do that.
Well, look, let me ask you a question. What strengthens Oklahoma City's profile more? 2 soccer teams with the ability to attract an international brand of player and that do things to support local charities, or not? I mean, I understand the logic behind wanting. I don't understand the logic of saying that you want to raise the profile of Oklahoma City and #grow the game, but then to degrade other organizations that are literally trying to do the same thing. I mean, God forbid that we work together to make Oklahoma City a better place.
And let me make a quick point in terms of attendance, I guess.
Sure.
So sidetrack. Let's talk attendance. The big question is, can Oklahoma City support 2 professional soccer teams? The answer to that question is very obviously yes. Okay? and here is not an apples to apples point, because the size of the game is different, but Manchester, England has a population of 540,000 people, and they successfully support at least 2, arguably 3 successful professional soccer teams. Now, obviously that's England. That's arguably the birthplace of soccer. Oklahoma City proper, not even the surrounding communities, has 610,000 people in it. So, and we're not trying to fill Old Trafford, 110,000 seats. You know, we're putting 20,000 butts in seats for both teams. So, I think it's fair to say we want a rivalry there. It wouldn't be right without a
sure.
rivalry.
Friendly rivalry, right?
But if you're really about growing the game, why are you trying to snuff out one team?
Hey, look.
I don't understand it.
If you listen to this podcast and read between the lines, you're going to hear 2 guys who are trying really hard, who want to be fans of both teams. And this kind of leads me to my next point. There is this whole atmosphere of complete negativity and cynicism and pessimism that is coming out of the energy that makes it really hard for me to want to be associated with that team at all. At all. And I don't know where it comes from. It's like, do you know anybody that supports the OKC Blue but hates the Thunder? It's just, there's so much cutting off of the nose to spite the face, and it is comical. So
I will say to play devil's advocate here, there are certain people on the Rio side that do the same thing via social media.
Very fair. Very fair.
So, and they have their reasons for doing it, but you won't find us doing it. I mean,
all we've ever tried to do is bring an objective narrative to the table to push back against the easy narrative. But look, where does the negative attitude come from? Because it's so pervasive across, at least if Twitter is representative. Wait, I don't know that that's debatable, right? The rumor that it's just so pervasive. Where does it come from? The rumor that the Energy Ownership Group used the legal system to block beer sales at Miller Stadium last night, and that they hosted a team event in Yukon last night.
Yeah, it was no secret.
That's so petty. It
was no secret that the Rayo front office was planning to sell beer at the stadium from the beginning.
Right.
So it can only be seen as a calculated response to do it late the night before the first game. So let me step back a little bit, because one thing we've been seeing a lot is, great, you sold out your home opener. I don't even think they said that much. 6,416 seat tickets sold, plus 200
standing room
only. So the number that we saw, as you mentioned earlier, was, well, 95% of those people were given free tickets. Okay. We have it from a good source, who actually would probably, you would think, from the source, want to make this number even greater. But we have it from a good source that 700 ticket vouchers were given away. So subtract 700 from the sold out 6,616 people, and that's still a wildly successful home opener.
Well, look, it's not like the Rio front office has suddenly invented this new marketing scheme that is so anathema to other sports ownership groups that they're like hating on it.
Yeah.
Teams give away tickets all the time, and if there's ever a game that you want to announce as a sellout, it's your first one. I expect that they give out ticket vouchers for the next 2 or 3 or 4 home games to continue to get people in the stadium, feel the atmosphere, and see the product on the field. And by the way, comparing attendance figures is not the way to evaluate.
Because just like I said, and we will see this Saturday night, Oklahoma City is big enough to support 2 teams. Both stadiums can sell out every Saturday night all throughout the summer. There's no Thunder games to conflict with. There's no college football until we get into the NASL playoffs. It's silly to think that one of these teams has to be the victor.
Well, dude, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills when I read Twitter. I really, like, the sense of reality is so warped that it is ironic to me that the club that is backed by another club is an investment, like the cynical kind of like Emirate, like the NYCFC Manchester City like scheme, is in my point of view the one that is fighting to be independent, is fighting to be progressive, is fighting to support the community, and is fighting to raise the profile of Oklahoma City. Look, stepping off the soapbox, and hopefully not a fanboy when I said all that stuff, look, Rayo Oklahoma City might fail. Like, very well might fail. But if it fails, it should do so on what I will call actual merits, and not on manufactured controversies. Not on arguments about semantics. So, that's all I have to say about that.
All right. Well said.
Thank you. Any closing thoughts on your end?
No, I don't think so. I think I'll be interested to see what happens this coming Saturday, with both teams having home games at the same time. Will be interesting, I should say, to see how this team moves in the community and enthralls the community, if they will. I think fair points all around. And
yeah, look, there's a lot of work to be done still. The road's not getting any easier. So, look, stay tuned. We know we will be, and we'll report back next week. Thanks for listening.